In this lesson, I'm building off of students' prior knowledge of evaluating expressions to teach how to, the objective of today's lesson, which is to evaluate functions using f of x. And so, the first one, evaluate 2n minus 6 if n equals 4. So when evaluating expressions, students know just to substitute in for n, the 4, and replace it. Substitution means to replace, not to put it next to it. Subtract 6, and so 8 minus 6 is going to be 2. And then if I ask them to evaluate f of 4 for f of n equals 2n minus 6, if they didn't get that during the warm-up, I go over it and talk about, well, this function is in terms of n. That means n is going to be in the expression to the right, or to the one side of the function notation, to show what variable is in the expression on the right-hand side on this case. And so if you had f of 4 equals 2n minus 6, so you're going to substitute 4 in for the n. That just means replace in f of x. You're going to replace or substitute 4 in for the x for the notation. You don't calculate anything on the notation, but you calculate it on the expression on the right when you're going to evaluate that. So it's going to be 2 times 4 minus 6. So this is just, again, notation on the left showing that you're substituting 4 in for n, for the function in terms of n. So you have 2 times 4 is 8 minus 6. So still the answer is 2. It's just notation to show that this is a function. It's a linear function if we graphed it on the graph, and it would pass the vertical line test. So if you had evaluate z squared, if z is equal to negative 6, we talk about when it basically means when you square negative 6, that means negative 6 times negative 6. So be careful that that's actually a positive 36. So that's going to equal 36. And then f of z, the function f of z, if it's equal to z squared, the same thing, you're showing that you're substituting with the notation in for negative 6. So what would the expression on the right equal if you substituted negative 6 in for z? And so you're going to have negative 6 squared, which also again would be 36. So f of negative 6 is equal to 36. Well, what point is that on the, we've talked about looking at function notation, what point is that on the graph? Well, x is negative 6, y is 36. So that would be the ordered pair negative 6, 36 that you would plot. The last, number 5, the expression 3x squared minus 1, if you substitute negative 2 in for x, so that's going to be 3 times negative 2 squared minus 1. And so you exponents first, you square that, that's going to be 4. So 3 times 4 is 12, minus 1 is going to be 11, so the expression is 11. Same thing using function notation. For the function, if you call it a function, this is actually a parabola on the graph, it's U-shaped, but if it's a quadratic, so if you substitute in negative 2 in for the function f of x, because this function's in terms of x, that means that the variable in the expression on the right is going to have x's in it. And so you have 3 times negative 2 squared minus 1. And again, you would just evaluate on the right, and that would be equal to, so f of negative 2 would be equal to 11. So that would be, one of the points on this function would be negative 2, 11. The x would be negative 2, and the y would be 11.